So I saw a great interview with Kell Brook. There was some great insight, and I wanted to give the boxing philosophy perspective. So let's open that door. We're going to explore 9 ideas. So idea number 1, Kell Brook admits he underachieved, says he wouldn't have taken the Triple G fight if he'd lived a disciplined life. Now, I just want to paint a picture here. Kell Brook to me was a great fighter. The Sean Porter fight showed his talent, his composure, his great jab, and his identity. Let me give some context. Sean Porter then, not the Sean Porter of now, who's a great boxing analyst, by the way, but the Sean Porter then was a monster. I remember he stopped poorly in 4 rounds. He had momentum, was champion, and was very dangerous, and he appeared to like have He-Man type strength. And he was a very dominant force. But Kell Brook did a masterful performance. It wasn't pretty, but it was an educated performance. Did he underachieve? Did Kell Brook underachieve? Well, he achieved a lot. So the notion that he could have achieved more just says so much about Kell Brook's talent. It really, really does. Now, the second idea is that, and it's a transition, is that Ryan Garcia's mental inconsistencies versus Conor Benn's mental strength. So Tony Bellew, who's part of the interview, frames this as a deciding factor, not the physical tools. The physical tools are important because with regards to the weights, but the mental tools may be more important. And Tony Bellew is again, another good fighter, had a really good fight against Usyk. And of course, he had those 2 fights with David Haye. But the psychological element of boxing is so essential, and it's so misrepresented or misunderstood. I think it will be important. It's important to see how Conor Benn handles this huge experience. And it's important to see how Ryan Garcia handles this huge experience. Garcia allegedly, historically, has had mental health issues. Could this play a part? At the same time, Garcia's team are very strategic, so they can be quite Machiavellian. Again, could this play a part? Conor Benn has a good team, and he's a very dedicated athlete. So I believe he'll come into that fight psychologically very strong. Now, the third idea is that Triple G is described as unbelievably good. And Kell Brook fought Triple G, and he calls him the most feared man in boxing at the time. And he has regret and respect. So it's like that duality. It's important to remember that at that time, Triple G was seriously feared. He had a great jab. So he controlled the distance with a jab. It was a hard jab. It's a jab that feels like a backhand. And he had this shattering left hook to the temple, which he threw kind of weird because he threw it like that. He didn't throw it like that. He threw it like that. It's that temple shot. And he was under the guidance of Abel Sanchez. And Sanchez seems to be the orchestrator behind that type of punch. You know, that when I see someone throw a punch to the temple like that, I automatically think Abel Sanchez. The fight was problematic. And when I say the fight, when Triple G fought Kell Brook, it was problematic because there was a massive disparity in weight, a huge disparity in weight. I believe Kell Brook is elite, but, you know, there are weight divisions for a reason. Kell Brook was so brave, he rolled the dice, but it was a lottery ticket. And when you play the lottery, 99 times out of 100, you're not going to get the winning numbers. But the problem wasn't losing the fight. The problem was the effect it had on his career and maybe on his confidence. The fourth idea is that Terence Crawford was called a surgeon, punch perfect technique, seamless start switching, great technical fighter. Now, when Kell Brook fought Terence Crawford, to me it was a shame because Kell Brook in that fight was not trained by Dominic Ingle. And Kell Brook is a Dominic Ingle fighter. For those that don't know, Dominic Ingle is a well-respected trainer with a high pedigree and a massive history. I'm not saying the outcome would have been different, but what I am saying is that, you know, Kell Brook is a Dominic Ingle fighter, means that he was born, he was raised within that environment. So when you take him out of that environment, he's not going to be optimal. And I just wanted to see an optimal Kell Brook against Crawford. And again, that was a shame. And again, this was after the Triple G situation, which I believe had a physiological, psychological, and a physical effect on Kell Brook. Now, the fifth idea is Bellew's world-class versus elite level distinction. He places Brook, Crawford, Usyk, and Canelo in the elite tier. Of course, in boxing, there are many different levels. There's like British level, below, so you've got below British level, Commonwealth level, European level, title contender, championship level, a good champion, great champion, and then at the top of that list, you've got elite champions. And what an amazing list to be a part of. And only a few, very, very few people make that elite list. When I think of elite fighters, who do I think of? Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard. Who else do we put? Roberto Duran, Evander Holyfield. Got to put Larry Holmes in there. Rocky Marciano. A lot of people be hating on Rocky Marciano, but I feel he has to go in there. Joe Calzaghe, Lennox Lewis. You've got to have Joe Lewis in there. There's so many people I'm missing right now, but it's like there's many people we can place up there, but in terms of a percentage of the boxing population, it's such a small percentage. 1%, less than 1%. But what you got to put Usyk in there as well, and Mike Tyson. Yeah, so many names, and what a privileged, it's very privileged for people that are able to make it to that level. I think when you get to that level, it's not just about genetics. It's about preparation. It becomes more than just about being in the right place at the right time. It becomes about being mentally strong, being committed, and also having the genetics. Of course, you've got to put Floyd Mayweather and James Toney in there as well. And Roy Jones. Can't forget Roy Jones. So many elite fighters. It's funny because on one hand, there's not many elite fighters, but on another hand, there's so many elite fighters. Idea number 6. So there's a prediction that Spence predicted to stop Tszyu with explicit reasoning about Tim Tszyu's decline. And of course, this turned out to be false. I guess we were expecting a different Spence. We got an old Spence, but not the old Spence. And before the fight, I acknowledged that there were some negative signs in the camp, and I actually posted this video on the day of the fight, before the fight. And I remember I got attacked by a few people in the comments. The first thing I want to say is that I don't want to minimize Tim Tszyu's performance. I thought he had a great performance. I thought he was patient. I thought that, he dealt with the task very effectively. And I think he deserves a lot of credit, and he deserves a lot of respect. But let's not pretend that that was the Errol Spence of old, or that was the Errol Spence at an elite level, because clearly it was not. And there were little clues in the interviews. Like there was an interview where it was suggested this may be his last fight. Then in the next interview, he said, no, it won't be his last fight. Then there was an interview about saying that, the camp was a struggle, that, he was struggling to do 4 rounds, and then Ronnie Shields helped him do 4 rounds to 12 rounds. And then there was some other wording about his body broke down and he had to rest a lot. And for me, the inference and the connotation of all this talk is just negative. To me, I'm just thinking, you've had a bad camp. You've basically said that you've had a bad camp. And he didn't take any warm-up fights. And there might have been a reason for that, because if you can notice the decline in the warm-up fights, that decline would have been more obvious. So it was a good performance by Tim Tszyu. Big respect to Tim Tszyu, but many of us believe that it wasn't an elite Errol Spence. That's not minimizing Tim Tszyu's performance. That's just giving the appropriate context. Idea number 7, Usyk vacated his belts, and he's framed as earned the right. To do that, both agree he is the true best heavyweight. Of course, Usyk is currently the best heavyweight in the world. He beat AJ twice. That's a former 2-time heavyweight champion. He beat Tyson Fury twice, who was seen as, one of the great fighters at the time. And Tyson Fury is objectively a great fighter. I don't know why people try and minimize that. And then he beat Daniel Dubois twice. And, he beat Daniel Dubois the first time. But then the second time when he beat Daniel Dubois was coming off 3 big wins. Remember, what wins was he coming off? The Jarrell Miller, and Jarrell Miller was undefeated at the time. Then he had the win against Hrgovic, and Hrgovic was undefeated at the time. And then he had that amazing performance against AJ. I mean, he looked like Mike Tyson in that fight. He looked amazing in that fight. He really did. So he went into the Usyk rematch with much more confidence than in the first Usyk fight. But despite that, Usyk put on a clinical performance. And I think there's so much evidence to show that Usyk is pound for pound the best. He's earned that right. And even though he's vacated the titles, he still has I think there's the credibility of the championships, and that credibility is valid. But then you have the crown of the people's champion, and that's like an invisible crown. And Usyk definitely has that. However, Usyk may be the best heavyweight boxer, but is he the best pound for pound? I think we've got to give that to Naoya Inoue, the best pound for pound fighter at the moment. I believe so. Many might disagree, but big respect to Usyk. He has done so much for boxing. And then the 8th idea is that Tony Bellew calls Fury versus Wach and AJ versus Pringa madness. Indeed, it was complete madness. I would say that the AJ Pringa fight was madness. But that's what makes boxing boxing. And that's why we love it. We love the madness. We love the unpredictability. And boxing is entertainment. In effect, it's a show. And when the unexpected happens, it makes it all that more exciting. And it makes it more curious for us to watch it. So I agree. The Tyson Fury versus Wach, I still haven't seen the full fight. From the highlights, it looked like that Tyson dominated. He was getting back his timing, but he didn't look like he was back to his elite level. But my understanding is that he won every round. Now that premise might be incorrect, but that's my understanding. So I don't know if there was madness in that fight, but there was definitely madness in the Pringa fight. And the 9th and final idea is that Fury needs boxing more than boxing needs him. That's a philosophical statement. And I think it's a great take because Tyson Fury has given a lot to boxing. He definitely has given a lot to boxing. But it's also important to acknowledge that boxing has given a lot to Tyson Fury. Because for many, boxing gives purpose. And I think for Tyson Fury, boxing is re-establishing that purpose. And also when you think of the Tyson Fury team, when Tyson Fury boxes, the team gets fed. And in capitalism, that's important. The more he fights, the more money is generated. There's the infrastructure of Tyson Fury. But it also keeps Tyson Fury in shape, not just in physical shape, but in mental shape. And that's an important part of boxing. Boxing isn't just about what happens in the ring. It's about who you become. It's about the discipline. It's about being the best version of yourself. And let's have it right. Tyson Fury has given a lot to boxing, but boxing is now giving a lot to Tyson Fury. Let's finish this with 7 questions. Question number 1. Did Kell Brook truly underachieve, or did his biggest risks shorten an already great career? Kell Brook had a great career, so in a sense he didn't underachieve. However, had he not taken the Triple G fight, he could have achieved more. That just tells you how great of a fighter Kell Brook was. He was truly a great fighter. And Dominic Ingle did a great job with Kell Brook. And I remember watching that Amir Khan fight. Big shout out to Amir Khan. But that was definitely a great moment for Kell Brook. And big respect to Amir Khan for taking that fight, because he could have avoided that fight, but he decided to jump into the jungle. So you have to respect both warriors. But that was another defining moment in Kell Brook's career. And that Sean Porter fight, like I said, it may have not visually looked, I don't want to say it didn't look visually impressive, but there was a lot of holding, there was a lot of It may not have looked like a great fight, but it was an impressive performance. It was a strategic performance. It was a strategic masterclass from Kell Brook. And like I said, Kell Brook has done so much for British boxing. Big respect to him. Question 2. Will Ryan Garcia's mental inconsistency decide the Conor Benn fight? Is that premise true? Does Ryan Garcia have mental inconsistencies, or is Ryan Garcia Machiavellian, and will he manipulate Conor Benn into thinking that he's mentally inconsistent so that Conor Benn becomes unprepared? I think regardless if Ryan Garcia plays psychological or Machiavellian games, Conor Benn will come in his best shape, and I think it's important for Garcia that he also comes in his best shape. Question 3. Was facing Triple G an act of courage or a gamble Brook should have never taken? I think Kell Brook is a fighter. He's a fighter's fighter. You present him with a fight, he's going to say yes. I think in hindsight, and hindsight bias is a strong thing, that his promoter, and I know that's Eddie Hearn, big respect to Eddie Hearn, but I think in hindsight he should not have presented that fight to Kell Brook, because the fighter in Kell Brook is going to say yes, but the more educated and the better decision was to say no. But let's be honest, the money would have been great, but it was a gamble and it was a risk. And when you gamble and when you take risks, they can backfire. That's why it's a risk. It was a high-risk fight, and I believe it affected Kell Brook's career. Question number 4. Did Terence Crawford beat the best version of Kell Brook? When Dominic Ingle isn't in your corner and you're fighting Kell Brook post Triple G, then you clearly didn't fight the best version of Kell Brook. Big shout out to Terence Crawford though. He's a great fighter, an elite fighter. Question 5. What separates a world-class boxer from a truly elite fighter? That's a good question. Why was Larry Holmes elite? Larry Holmes to me was elite because he had maybe the best jab in boxing, and he had so many successful world title defenses. Why was Muhammad Ali elite? His first reign was dominant. He beat Sonny Liston. People forget how intimidating Sonny Liston was. Beating Sonny Liston was some legendary stuff. That's number 1. Number 2, taking a 3-year layoff due to political reasons. We won't get into that. Coming back against George Foreman, the man who knocked out Joe Frazier in 2 rounds and beating him, that was legendary. So I guess you become elite by doing elite achievements. Why is Evander Holyfield elite? Lost to Riddick Bowe. Many people thought Riddick Bowe was going to be the next Joe Louis. Then he comes back and beats Riddick Bowe. That was legendary. Being undisputed cruiserweight champion. That was legendary. Beating Mike Tyson. That was legendary. What a legendary fight. What a legendary moment. Why is Sugar Ray Leonard legendary? I think of the Roberto Duran fight. Roberto Duran again, beating legendary fighters also makes you elite. So beating elite fighters can make you elite. Losing to Roberto Duran, then coming back, winning the rematch and having that infamous no mass moment. So what makes a boxer elite? Is it one thing? Is it a combination of things? It can be beating elite fighters. I think an elite boxer would generally have an elite mindset, and also they might have an elite tool. Larry Holmes, an elite jab. Lennox Lewis, an elite jab. Evander Holyfield, an elite left hook. James Toney, an elite defense, an elite counter right hand. Roy Jones had like elite everything, elite reflexes. Yeah, elite reflexes, elite speed, and some of the greatest footwork ever. So I think it's a combination of things. Of course, you've got to put Joe Calzaghe in there as well, who had maybe the best work rate I have ever seen, and the ability to adapt. That's another thing that makes you elite, the ability to be able to make adaptations in the ring, especially when things are not going your way. Question number 6. Did Tim Tszyu expose Spence or simply defeat an old version of him? Tim Tszyu had a great performance. He implemented some great tactics, and he's come back from a sequence of losses. I believe he's had 3 losses. So big respect to Tim Tszyu. It's not Tim Tszyu's fault that Errol Spence came into this fight. He didn't come in underprepared. He just wasn't able to get back to the level that he was. So Errol Spence came back. He took a gamble. He took a risk. He was audacious. He was bold. But the risk didn't pay off. And that was more part to Tim Tszyu, but it was also part of that fact was that he couldn't recreate the Errol Spence of old. And finally, question 7. Does Tyson Fury need boxing more than boxing needs Tyson Fury? I think boxing needs Tyson Fury because we need that Tyson Fury-AJ fight. Forget the money. Culturally, that has such a huge impact, particularly in Britain. It's like when you put the Garcia and Canelo together. It means a lot to the world, but then I'm assuming it means more to Mexico. So from a UK perspective, we want to see it because that has the potential to be one massive spectacle. That's going to be one for the memories. So in a sense, boxing needs Tyson Fury. But Tyson Fury has had a lot of challenges that boxing can help him with. So part of being a boxer is being disciplined. So by Tyson Fury committing himself back to boxing and by being compliant with being disciplined and being an athlete, that means that boxing has a tremendous amount of value to Tyson Fury. So there's a mutual interest between Tyson Fury and boxing. It's like a relationship, a good relationship. They both need each other. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community, and that means I'm interested in your thoughts, I'm interested in your perspectives, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, press like, hype, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.